What
So,
is
hey,
Perch short for?
Perch is short. I have no. So I stumbled on this name when I just created an account, and it was just a way to be a broadcaster, and I have no idea. It stands for nothing.
Okay, so
Literally
it's
it's
not a
available.
fish.
Just
Okay.
the name was available. That's
All right.
pretty much
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, hey, this is Perch, and I'm here with Joe. I'm also here with the great Bill Willingham. How are you today?
Apparently, I'm great. Yeah, I'm fine.
There you go.
I'm good. And you guys, are you well?
Yeah, not too bad.
As good as
Okay.
could be expected. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you gotten the jabs and rejoined the human race, or are you guys still bunkering
I'm now
in the
jabbed.
plague?
Yeah, I'm jabbed, and Joe, you got jabbed, right?
Yeah, I got I'm over a month fully vaccinated, so I can just run out into the streets and hug whoever the hell I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm sure that's allowed now. I got jabbed. My girlfriend did the 2 jabs, and then you wait 2 weeks. And her official invulnerability day was today. So we went out and had public eggs today to celebrate.
Nice.
The fact that we're nothing can kill us anymore.
Yes.
And they were fine public eggs. But
very nice. I'm still in my 2-week window, so I'm hoping for superpowers to emerge at some point in the next week.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. Some kind of
everyone gets the same superpower. It's total invulnerability, or so I'm told. Nothing can kill us anymore.
Yeah.
That's I hope people take that and try that out. That will be great.
Oh,
I've read a few novels
science.
like that, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
So this got maybe there's an idea for you in the future. You do a book about vaccines that give powers. Maybe not.
Everything gives powers now. I thought there was something that just occurred to me. I wrote it down somewhere. I'm not going to look it up because we're supposed to be entertaining people right now.
Sure.
But it was a way that everyone gets powers that no one had done yet. And I wrote it down and said, well, I'll make use of this at some point. But now I can't remember what it is.
That's the best thing.
All the stuff.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you about, like now, Dungeons and Dragons is so cool to the kids. All the kids are playing them. Celebrities are playing them. But you were involved in Dungeons and Dragons way before celebrities and the like.
In the early days, yes.
Yeah. What was that like?
Well, it was weird. I got into Dungeons and Dragons when I was in the Army, when I was in the military police, and assigned to a base where we were guarding nuke warheads out in the middle of nowhere in Germany.
Perfect.
And guarding nuke warheads is just about guarding anything, which is it's boring. You sit in a tower, you watch the grass grow. It's just boring. We weren't allowed to read when we're out in the towers because that takes your attention off of, watching the grass grow. But we were allowed to talk with each other on our landlines, all the towers hooked up, because chatting doesn't get your attention away. And so we started, a friend of mine who invited me into his D&D game, and I said it. He didn't describe it well. It's just like you go down a level and you fight things, and if you get tougher, you go down another level and fight tougher things. And I go, well, that just sounds stupid. But I was bored. I played it. It was fun, and we started running games out in the X area. You're on for 12 hours. People have nothing to do but talk to each other. So we ran this ongoing D&D game. And they couldn't take dice out to roll because that's distracting. But up in the front room where I ran things from, some of these tech sergeants and things would roll the dice for the people that I had hooked up on the communication system. And they actually got into it. They didn't get into the game. They thought it was stupid. But all these old fart, 20-year man sergeants would campaign with different players like, oh, you should let me roll your dice for you because I roll more 20s than this other sergeant, whatever. So yeah, we played D&D alone in the woods of Germany for a year, and then it got good to us. We got a lot of crap from the other guys that were not into that, but they were going insane out there because they had nothing to do.
Yeah.
We had something to do. We kept our selves engaged, but then it got too good to us. We would go back to the barracks in our off time and play still and not sleep. We would rent some of the post rec rooms for during our 4-day breaks and just play a round robin system of Dungeon Masters and just play 4 days in a row where people show up with their sleeping bags and their sea rations and stuff, and we cycle them into the game, we cycle them out. So we played more than anybody. As a matter of fact, Gary Gaius in my Welcome to the Company interview, he does a little spiel, and then he asks if there's any questions. And my question was, he would go on these tirades in Dragon Magazine and such about how his game has been running longer than any other, and his people are only up to 7th level. So any of you that are up to 20th level, and so you're cheating, you're money hauling, you're whatever. And I couldn't understand that. I couldn't understand because we were not money haul DMs. We were tough DMs. So I asked him about it, and in the conversation, he realized how much we were playing, basically 24 hours a day for a year. Whereas what I didn't realize is they played 1 day a week after school, after whatever, for a couple of hours. That's it. So he says, you may have played more D&D than anyone in the history of D&D, which was kind of cool. I'm sure that status has disappeared. I mean, there's people that have been running campaigns for 40 years now, and I haven't. Yeah. But that 1 year early in the game, we played more than anyone apparently.
Strike early. Perfect.
Yeah, I forget what your question was, but what was it like? That's what it was like. It was sleeping in sleeping bags. Playing, not going crazy. For our big end of the campaign denouement thing, we rented the Frankenstein castle and camped out there and played around a fire. It was pretty cool.
Nice. Did you have a favorite class that you liked to play, or a race or anything? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Back in the 70s in the Army, no one had any class. But see, now that was very polite. You waited until you knew it was a joke, and you gave me the mercy laugh. So good for you.
No, that was a good one.
That was good.
Yeah. I think different players had it. I played fighters for a while. We were missing a lot of the pages from our original D&D books, so we didn't quite understand how magic worked. So none of us did it for a while, but finally we worked out our own rules because we were missing theirs. Mm-hmm. And when we worked out what we thought they were trying to get to with the magic rules, our solution was actually better than the original rules. But anyway, then I played a lot of wizards and such. But I don't know. The early days of new characters would come out in Dragon Magazine and such. Mm-hmm. And when they created, for example, the monk class, they overdid it. They didn't quite realize how dice worked or whatever. And there was a few things that a monk could do and never, ever, ever get killed or never fail to hit. And they fixed all those. But for a while, we were all playing monks, just like Kwai Chang Kang, because you get to 3rd or 4th level, I forget what, you cannot be hit, and you cannot not hit your enemy. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. So maybe we got a little Monty Hollis during that time. Yeah,
I love it.
That's great.
I guarantee you, everybody who clicked on this didn't expect this opening, but this is beautiful.
Oh yeah, no, this is great.
I have to imagine this sounds like the dumbest question of all, but I mean, you then when you start writing comics, I'm assuming that one led to the other. I mean, all that time spent with doing this campaign, this role playing, and everything else, I have to imagine that helped significantly with comics.
Probably. I mean, it was pretty raw storytelling, and that of course is
Sure.
always good in comics or anything. Mostly while I was in the Army and in the few hours where I wasn't sleeping or playing D&D, I did work on my portfolio. I wanted to break into comics in the worst way, and if you see my early work, you'll see that I succeeded in that.
Yes.
But yeah, I constantly worked up portfolios and sent them off. I wish I still had them. I got some really nice rejection letters. Maurice Severin took some time out once to write me a nice rejection letter saying, this isn't quite good enough for us yet, but keep trying and look us up when you think you're ready again. So yeah, the comics was in parallel with that. I wanted to do comic books from childhood, and like most artistic children, my friend Bruce and I, we came out with our own comics when we were young, and hand stapled them, and this was even before Xerox machines were widely available. I'm that old, so to make multiple copies, we would put carbon paper between the pages and just redraw the original comic onto a new one, and
wow,
it was ridiculous.
Yes, you work up to the Ditto machine before you get to Xerox.
Yeah, we actually played with Ditto machines. The church had one that they would let us use, and they never came out well. At least if we were hand drawing on carbon paper, we knew every line would get tended to.
Nice. And you recently tweeted about you had a hand in, what was it, New Mutants #1 and one of the early appearances of Spider-Man in the black costume, right?
Sure. When I was out of the Army and out of TSR, I quit after a year, and I went to Long Island, hung out with the Fantasy Games Unlimited people. Yes. And from time to time would hop the train into Manhattan to try and slog my examples around, and I wasn't getting anywhere. I was getting a lot of. I saved that from tipping over. I was getting a lot of, you're close, but not yet, kid.
Yeah.
But at the same time, all these independent comics just started out. First Comics had just announced their existence. They hadn't come out with anything yet. But there was Capital, and there was Pacific, and various things. And then, anyway, I decided instead of just doing new samples for Marvel every week, I would do some generic samples for these guys, these independents, and send them out. And I did. And Mike Gusovich at Noble Comics called me up and says, "Come draw comics for us." And I got on a bus and went out to Grand Rapids and did that. Turns out he had no money. He was hoping to have some someday, but so that didn't work out. But to finance his own comics, he was inking a lot of Marvel, DC. I guess mostly Marvel. But he got the very first New Mutants to ink. And because I was there hanging out, kind of, waiting for Noble Comics to hit big, I would help out by filling in blacks for that New Mutants, and he did some other stuff too. But that was the one that I remembered. And then later on, I'm in a studio in Houston because they were going to do the Elementals that Noble Comics could not afford to do. And this was the Texas Comics guys. And inker Bill Anderson was down there to be part of the new Texas Comics thing. And he was getting work. And he got He got to ink. Oh, come on, I'm spacing his name. I'm very old, so this interview is going to be a whole lot of searching for names. Art Adams. Adams did a thing called Long Shot, if you'll remember.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
And,
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bill Anderson inked a little bit of that. Maybe did the first 4 issues. There was like a miniseries introduction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of blacks there, and I did the first Spider-Man costume from Rick Leonardi drew it,
Mm-hmm.
and Rick Leonardi used to do little paragraphs in the borders for the colorist. He did this one tirade about how this is a cherry red Lamborghini, whatever kind of car it was, and it's just like, mess up everything, but don't mess up this car. Do little speeches like that. So
somehow those notes never make it into the trades in the director's commentary section. Yeah. That's impressive. So this is an interesting way to get into comics. So you're doing you have this desire from being a kid. What kind of comics were you reading as a kid that made you hooked on this medium?
Well, all of them. I grew up a military brat in a big family. I had roughly 6 million older sisters.
That's going to be fun.
When we were stuck in Germany with no TV or anything for little kids to do, we read a lot. I was too young to read. I mean, I didn't know how to read. Right. But the nice thing about a lot of bored older sisters is you can always find an older sister to read something to you. And I took advantage of that. In our childhood, comics just appeared. I mean, I'm not sure how new ones ever entered the cycle, but everyone in the American housing barracks had every kid, and we would trade them. We would put them on our wagon, go out and offer to trade, and the trade, it was very, very codified. You would each sit with your piles, going through each other's books, set aside the ones you want. And story had nothing to do with it. If you hadn't read it, you got it. And then you compare each other's piles and give or take or whatever till you have a fair trade. The double sized ones were worth 2, whatever.
Yeah.
And so these things were traded all over. And you got to understand, the military barracks, the enlisted barracks, they stack us in like cordwood. So there were hundreds of kids to trade with. So the answer to your question is, I had exposure to more comic books as a kid. You didn't own them for very long, any individual one. And sometimes some of the ones that you had traded away came back, and it's like, oh, I remember this. Well, I'm going to read it again, so I'll take it again.
I love that.
But I seem to recall, well, I liked the Harvey comics as a kid, Stumbo the Giant and Wendy and Casper, et cetera, et cetera. I liked Sea Devils, and I liked the Secret Six a lot, but I think mostly because my sister Barbara was the better reader. I mean, she would put a lot into it and do voices and stuff, and she liked those. So when those books were better, because that sister would put a little something into it, and I think that's what influenced my my joy. It was 1962 when we came back from Germany. As a matter of fact, my dad quit right after the Cuban Missile Crisis because, of course, as you may or may not know, if the balloon went up during that nonsense, it was Germany that was going to disappear off the face of the map. That was going to be the battle site of 2 nuclear powers slugging it out. And I didn't realize at the time, but I guess that scared my parents, and my dad decided he was a lifer in the Army. I thought he ran the Army because he was a high-level enlisted man who was constantly chewing out, young whippersnapper officers and such. And so I assumed he was in charge. But anyway, he quit. We went back to America, and it was in the visiting relatives all the way across America to Seattle, where we were going to live, that I began to see new comics that actually appeared on the newsstand. And that was where I got my first exposure to things like Spider-Man and Fantastic Four and Marvel comics that just blew my mind. It was like they were so good, and so from that point onwards, it was Marvel comics all the way.
Yes.
Daredevil a little bit better than Spider-Man, but both were good. Fantastic Four, as soon as I finally saw one of those, that was the best. You couldn't get better than that.
Yeah, so you're drawn to the Fantastic Four kind of right out the gate. And this is a comic that a lot of people say they struggle with trying to write. Of just that it's a very difficult dynamic, and they don't know how to make it contemporary. But I'm curious because I love the Fantastic Four as one of the comics I started with. I think Joe, that's same for you.
No, I love the Fantastic Four. It depends on who's working on it. If it's Stan and Jack or sure, but.
But it's what do you think about that? Do you think this narrative? Some characters, Fantastic Four always comes up. Captain America, Superman. These characters are just impossible to write. They're very, very hard. What's your take on
that? Well, at one point I was. This is not well known. Did a lot of writing for DC, especially during the Fables years. DC was offering me other stuff too. They offered me Superman. As a matter of fact, they gave it, they offered and I accepted. I was going to do Superman for a while. That first issue just intimidated the hell out of me. And so I was very politely fired when months after I took the job, I was still, I'm going to have an idea for that first issue any day now. Just stick with, and they quietly let me go. From that. So yes, the intimidation factor on certain characters is high. Fantastic Four, the thing you need to know about the Fantastic Four, the best thing about the best superheroes is that they're superheroes secondary to what they are. The Fantastic Four was challengers of the unknown. As a matter of fact, I think Kirby, copped to it. It's like, they wanted a superhero team to compete with the Justice League or maybe the Justice Society. I forget which was, around 62. And so he just took his challengers characters, remapped them as an explorer group, but then just gave them superpowers. Like now they're super dupers. The thing to deal with in any of those is what is the essential kind of core character or characters. And I think the Fantastic Four it's a dysfunctional family, but I think some of the writers lose track of the fact that they're dysfunctional until they're threatened from the outside. They're every Irish family in the 30s.
Okay.
Which is
we
will fight like cats and dogs, but if you come from the outside after us, we team, we form up. You don't come from the outside and mess with us. That's our job. Superman is the Moses, the ultimate, alien visitor. Batman is the street level revenge. He's a pulp character, and the only in the big transition from pulp heroes to superheroes, he's the only one that never lost his pulp hero-ness, except for at some point he stopped killing. But other than that, he's always been and continues to be a pulp character. I'm a little disappointed and a little heartened both. I kept pitching Wonder Woman to DC because no one was getting it right.
Yeah,
Wonder Woman is a warrior from a warrior society first, and a superhero second, and everything was like, space hugs and patriarchy and you have to learn to love each other. And I'm a vessel of peace, and that's bullshit. She's a fighter. She was a swords and sandals Greek hero, who they really don't understand their own characters. But one thing they got right is that 1 second in Batman versus Superman, where that big Lord of the Rings troll that they were fighting slams her to the ground as she's like duking it out with him, and this smile flits across her face, like she's having the time of her life. That's the one thing they absolutely got right about that. And there are moments in really terrible superhero films, like the Torch chasing Silver Surfer through the subways, the bridge and tunnel. They're just little moments that they get perfect, but not always. Anyway, understand the core of the character is how you write them, and I would love to take a shot at the Fantastic Four. I don't know that I would do a good job, but I would sure like to try.
It's one of those books that it does seem like there's the people who really love it. They feel like they know, but it's there's this desire to constantly reinvent it. We need to break it apart in some way. It's old. It's stale, and we have to. Right. We have to shake it up, and that impulse to shake it up feels like that's become the norm, and whatever the original team was is the unusual thing now.
Yeah, I think probably this can be laid at Frank Miller's door. He ruined everything. Probably Frank Miller and Alan Moore, which is, you had characters and writers would come and go, artists would come and go, and it would kind of be the same. You could recognize the character from one writer to another.
Sure.
But then Frank Miller came along and decided, well, I'm going to make Daredevil cool. He did it accidentally, in the sense that, not accidentally that he didn't have good ideas. He had wonderful ideas, but he was the young kid who's like, let me try this, and their options were, well, Daredevil doesn't sell, we cancel it, or this young stupid kid that will not stop pestering us, let's give him a few issues. And then he just, from issue 1, he hit the ground running, and suddenly it was like, he did to writers what people have been learning about artists, which is, I like this artist. This character is better when this guy's drawing it. And it took me a long time as a kid to realize, it's a better character when so-and-so is drawing as opposed to other person. Well, he did that with writing. He made it such its own thing, and he suddenly wasn't just a Spider-Man clone, and it had its own. He raised the bar, and it was like Daredevil mythology. It was, the legends and this. And I think the worst thing about inspiration is it inspires people to do stuff. I think every writer to follow, it was kind of a sea change where now when you come on a book, you have to put your stamp on it. See, I didn't forget what you said. I'm working my way back to it. You have to make it yours.
Yeah.
And I think they don't always succeed in what is the core of this character that is wondrous and its own thing. Frank Miller did that with Daredevil. He stripped it down to its core and rebuilt it, with everything that made it perfect Daredevil and terrible for any other character. So I think there's a lot of that idea of, well, I've got to make my mark on it when I come in. And boy, sometimes you have to do some pretty big things to get, that not cynical reader attention, but jaded is the word I'm looking for. It's like we've seen so much. You need to do better. You got to get my attention. And the other part of it is that we've aged. One of the things that I despise, and Marvel is the chief perpetrator of this now, which is Wolverine came along and captured everyone's imaginations. Like, oh, what a cool, fresh character, unlike anything else. And so they keep trying to replicate that. they keep making, pseudo Wolverines. Did you notice that, like, for a while, any character that could possibly have a set of claws added to its
Sure.
costume added, and that wasn't it. That's the window dressing. Because what the inarticulate and not their fault for this readers is, what they say is, give us another Wolverine, give us another Wolverine. But what they're really saying is, make me feel the way I did when this guy came in and just completely opened up this new area of imagination for me. The problem is you were this age when that happened, and you're this age now. You don't have access to that sense of wonder and stuff anymore. Writers and such who come along with characters and just start, throwing all sorts of stuff at it, they're never going to make the readers feel that sense of wonder, because the readers have, become old men or more, right.
And they've seen it. The same trick maybe doesn't work twice. Yeah, the times pass. I see that, and I think every time too this reinvention happens, somebody tries to make their mark and it doesn't quite land. The character's in a weirder state for the next writer, and so as it kind of stacks up like dominoes. That you're aging, the character's getting more porous. It's a tough combo, and it starts to collapse in on itself.
If I was going to be arrogant enough to advise other comics writers that are just coming into the business and take this with a grain of salt, I would suggest, if you keep going in the same direction, well, if he's a killer, make him have a higher body count. If he's this, make him more of this and more and more and more. And so we have all these grim, dark edgelord superheroes. Because we've all been going in that direction, and I'm partially at fault. My elementals help lay some of that, so mea culpa. Mm-hmm. But perhaps the thing to do to really shock some people, shock the readers out of complacency, is to look back, not in a return to this. Like, by the way, I hate the argument of, oh, you want to return it to the 50s, so you want segregation in the South, and you want. It's like, no, you don't have to. You don't have to choose every aspect of it. But we want this again. But maybe explore the idea of heroes that are heroic. Roger Stern used to say the trouble with writers in comics is they have trouble imagining anyone more noble than they are, and they're a bunch of cynical bastards. So write truly heroic people. They really do exist. I live out in the Midwest now, and some of my friends here, one is a couple that used to work for the CIA. He was in counterintelligence. She was in intelligence. She actually hired him after 9/11 to be part of this, black ops team, and they were doing very, very black stuff in Afghanistan and such. But they're just the nicest, sweetest people you can imagine. They give you the shirt off their back, and
that's really good.
They go to church, all this kind of stuff. So look back to times, when heroes were more heroic. Write a priest that isn't fucking little children all the time. Write a oil company that isn't an evil organization that's sucking all of the humanity out of humanity. Try different things on, rather than a worser, coarser, grimmer version of the same thing you've been doing for whatever. That's my advice. And also,
I think it's nice. I think, and I like the one aspect you said. If you're gonna go back to a certain time, you're gonna try to do things simple. That doesn't mean you're ignoring all the bad things. It means you don't have to include every single possible thing in your story. You can actually just take bits. You don't, if you're trying to do a 50s style story, you can just focus on the heroism. You don't have to open up the door to everything. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Right. And if you need all the grim crap, there's villains. Make them bad guys.
That's what villains are for. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
Yes.
was going to say with going back to Elementals, since you were talking about distilling superheroes and superhero teams, and they're not superheroes first; they're this and then. Could you describe Elementals a bit that way?
Elementals. It's a horror comic in the sense that these are essentially vampires. They're different kinds of, the whole idea is vampires die. They get all these wonderful powers and as kind of like the benefits of coming back to life. But they're not the same as being alive. And so I played with ideas about how, yes, these characters died, they get their superpowers, they come back to life with these amazing powers, but they have trouble being normal people again. They forget how to act normal unless they're concentrating on it. And then they were brought back for a specific purpose. This is the reluctant recruitment, or even the against my will recruitment. This is the assassin who's been retired for 20 years and comes out of retirement because they've got something on him and he has to go kill the bad guy. They're these guys. They did not have, except for with the Vortex character, they did not have any kind of heroic ideals. Mainly, Jeanette was a police officer. Her heroic ideals was do the good job, get the perp. Fathom was a dilettante. Tommy was a in school. I'm too smart for my school, but so I've been kind of an outsider. But they weren't that. But they were brought back for a specific purpose. It was intended to be a story arc wherein, when the job's done, like any good, they should go home. When the war's won, you go home. With them, I think it was going to be pretty. Going home was going to be, re-entering the grave, probably. Yeah. I never got a chance to finish it, so we'll see. I mean, you get ideas as stories go along, and maybe that would have changed. But I suspect it would have been something like that.
It had a really good run. I mean, you went for many years with this. I mean, during the 80s, this was one of the titles people remember. It was kind of a key book, especially on the indie circuit.
It was. I was still trying to figure out what I was doing. It suffered from that a lot. For one thing, the publisher, they were not bad people, but they were trying to do what I was trying to do. They were trying to learn to be comic publishers as they go, and didn't always make good decisions. I was trying to learn to be a comic artist / writer as I went, and didn't always make right decisions. A lot of times when they were in violation of our contract, the only way to get their attention was to stop working. Now, that did eventually get their attention, and then we'd get back and we'd go, okay, what's wrong here? Let's fix it and get back to work. What I didn't realize, and God, I wish I would have, is that when a book stops coming out, no reader thinks, well, that Kimiko probably violated the contract of the guy, and then they wouldn't, do this until he got their attention by stopping working. No, they look at whose name is on the book, and they say, that guy, he's an unreliable guy. He doesn't get his books done. And that was true. That's all true. When who was it that said you become what you pretend to be? Someone said it as a dig at Stan Lee once, that he became the carnival barker that he pretended to be, and I'm not entirely sure that's true. But anyway, I kept training myself to stop working for any reason. Pretty soon, you said you were going to call it 6 and you called it 6:15. That's it. I'm stopping working. It got ridiculous. I spent the first 10 years of my career training myself to not get work done, and boy, was that a mistake. Back in the TSR days, I was the guy that you brought in at the last minute because someone dropped a ball and this guy's fast, and I squandered that. So all of that was in the way of making the Elementals a complete, well developed, well executed story that in hindsight you can see the bones. You can see this is what it is, or should have been, but it could have been better.
Yeah, and it premiered in was it a Justice Machine annual, and there was a Justice Machine crossover, and I think a lot of people listening now are thinking to themselves, "What the hell is the Justice Machine?"
Right, the Justice Machine suffered a similar thing. The Justice Machine, that was Mike Gustovich's Noble Comics thing, and that would come out when he built up enough money working for Marvel and such, and could afford to put out an issue. So it had the same problem of not coming out reliably enough to really find an audience, but for different reasons. He did not have the bad work ethic. He, for every issue of Justice Machine out there, he did a half a dozen to do it. So it was already had that one strike against it. Then when he could no longer, while I was there in Grand Rapids, Michigan, while I was there, they closed it down because they could just no longer afford to keep doing it. And then he licensed it to Kamiko, and it did okay for a while there, but we did the crossover, and that was supposed to you helped me get started in the business. Now that you need a boost, Elementals is doing well. Let's whatever. And I was glad to do it. I thought it was a pretty good story. But after that, I don't know. It didn't find the readers that I think it deserved, and so it disappeared again.
Which is a real shame, because it's been a while since I've read some Justice Machine, but there were some big names involved. I mean, Tony Isabella wrote a bunch of Justice Machine. Like, it was, and there were some stories in there that really stood out. There was a lot of. There was a lot there, and it's a shame it's kind of been memory holed in a way, and that like you were saying, that didn't find the audience that it deserved. It definitely was a standout superhero book at the time.
Yeah, the way to unmemory hole it is to get a huge compilation of everything that's gone before, get that out, and then do more. That's expensive, and people move on with their lives. I can't do that with Elementals because Andrew Rev owns it now, and so Elementals will never ever come out again. That guy's just incapable of doing books. But
notable guy.
Yeah. The problem with comics is you can be a crook and an idiot and insane. You can be any two of those and still eke by. And I'm not going to name names, but there's plenty of examples of any two of those that just leapt into your head when I said that. I don't think you can be all three. And Andrew Webb was all three. So I think he's got that going against him.
That's going to be a challenge. No, I mean, Elementals, which is a shame, because I think obviously remembered well, and I suspect would do well today. Like if in this magical world, I mean, I'm not trying to pour salt in the wound, but it would fit today quite well with what we're seeing.
Possibly, but here's the thing: everyone that loves the Elementals and remembers it fondly was a certain age when it kind of opened their eyes.
Yeah.
And you are not going to get that feeling back again if anything that is recognizably the Elementals from then is done now. As a matter of fact, you're going to look and go, okay, little nostalgia kick. It's nice to see that again, but I'm moving on. What you need is something, it's got to be something new. It's got to be something new and fresh. You'll note that I learned my lesson with Fables. We did 150 issues. They came out more or less on time. We got them out. We made them the best we could, and we wrapped the story up when we wrapped it up. people will ask, like, "Oh, I wish you were still doing that," but no one asked, "When are you going to ever finish that story?" Boy, when are you going to ever finish that story is the worst thing in a storyteller's career to hear, because the answer for a lot of it is, due to circumstances you will never fully see. The answer is never.
Yeah, that's true. I like. We should get into Fables a little bit, but I love Fables. I mean, from the writing to the James Jean covers to just kind of the entire package, Buckingham and everything. It was one of those titles that really kind of stands out in my mind for that time period. For the 2000. That was 2002, right? Then it was around then.
Yeah. I started working on it in late 2000. 2001 was the getting the machine up and running. So I think the first one did actually come out in 2002.
But you worked on a couple of you had a couple of other one shots or things like that at Vertigo before Fables came out, right?
Yeah, for Sandman and Dreaming. Yeah.
The first thing that I did was Proposition Player, which was my own thing, and it got a lot of critical attention and sold in the high dozens. It was just, it was going to be an ongoing series, and then by the third issue, where you have the publisher's indication of, is this going to go?
Yeah.
The sales were low enough to where they said, and it was actually the fourth issue that they called me up and said, this is it. It's not selling. Yeah. But they gave me two more. They were very kind. It's like, because by that time I had been truly kicked by the "you never finish stories you start" boot. And so I begged two more issues from them just to wrap it up in some way, and so we were able to. So that didn't fly, but Shelley Bond, who came in at Kamiko just before they died, and so was the very last editor on Elementals. She'd been wanting to. She was working with Vertigo and been wanting me to write for them for some time. So she kept finding things for me to do, like the Thessaly miniseries, the Dreaming stuff. And then while I was doing those to, keep the wolf from the door, I would work on ideas for my own thing again, which at one point included Fables, and, the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, Fables, as I mentioned, I think there were several years where that was on lists that I had made, and others was in that top book of the year. It's the thing you had to be following. And but what is notable, you mentioned it yourself, 150 plus issue, 151 issues, right?
Well, 150 standard issues.
Standard, and then you had
lots of spin-offs and such. Yeah.
I mean, a very long run. 13 years of comics. And you said it yourself. It was, there were a couple of delays, but not by much. It was pretty much on time, came out, and you got satisfying conclusions to multiple arcs. I mean, you had a number of plates spinning, and you were able to bring them together and give a complete story.
Yeah, sure. Say that. I don't know. It's just...
I'm sure I don't
get to decide if it worked or not, but that's very kind of you to say.
No, I think it's become a rarity a little bit that you get. I mean, you had a bunch of things there. You had a fairly consistent art team for the book. You had a mostly on time book. You had a very long, decade plus run. You had a lot of subplots and then conclusions to those subplots. Yeah. Like I'm trying to think if and Joe, help me out here. I mean, there's very few. I'm trying to think of much of anything that could check all those boxes for this amount of a run for a comic.
Yeah, no, it's certainly impressive and stands out like that. You think of some other long runs. I mean, like obviously there's stuff like Cerebus and things like that. But outside of that, I mean, you're talking few. I mean, Hellblazer lasted a long time, but there were a lot of, it was not, I don't think there was a single writer on it for 150 so issues.
Right.
You know, so yeah, that it's incredibly impressive, and isn't talked about enough in that regards. And also there were a lot of as your comic was coming out, it seemed like Hollywood kept pumping out grim fairy tales based movies and TV shows and the like as well. So someone must have thought it was pretty popular.
There was something in the air, and trying not to pat myself on the back. I think Fables contributed to that.
For sure.
We had movies and or TV series in development through that entire time. It probably escapes everyone's notice that, once upon a time, and the things that everyone's saying is, oh, they just ripped off Fables and stuff. Well, we had a 10-year head start on them. We were dealing with studios and whatever, and could never make it happen. Now, part of that is that I never got to, they wanted the movie TV rights, and they paid a good amount for them to keep me out of the process of shopping this around. As a result, I learned after the fact that, the guy that was like the TV movie guy for DC at the time, once again, I will not name names, but he kept walking away from deals.
Yeah.
Because, I wanted this and they wanted to do this and all this kind of stuff. It's like, and I learned it after the fact. It's like, bring me in and we can convince them to, it's sometimes hard to convince someone who's not a storyteller what works in the story that they're so excited about. And it's not the fact that the character has claws that come out. That's visually interesting or whatever, but that's not what makes that character cool. And so part of, I think, getting other people to understand your story is to get them to strip away the surface details and realize this is what the story is about, and this is why you love it. And I don't think it ever quite went that far.
We've talked to other people, and who've been in DC around at the time, and certainly Vertigo, and it's an interesting thing to talk about. But I don't think this was an isolated story. There were a number of really good ideas that were out there, and probably the same individuals who walked away from probably some pretty powerful things. And it just missed opportunities. It's one of those unforced errors that come up.
Yeah, but I think the nice thing is knock on wood, the lack of a Fables series and or movie, and one of those movies I wrote and for New Line Cinema, got paid for it. It'll never be made. As soon as I handed it in, they said, "Yeah, we can't afford to make this." But some of the writers that took shots at it. Like one, my favorite, it was Fables Creek. It was like Dawson's Creek if it was Fables. And they were all transformed into these, pouty teenagers. Sure. I mean, Bigby was pouty teenager. Bigby, Snow White was pouty teenager. Snow White, and they were sullen little shits that had drama with each other, and occasionally launched into a long monologue about, this is my character, this is my motivation, and this is why I think you should do this. And and it was just horrible. Only the pilot was written, and it was terrible. The thing is, it was kind of a cool story in the sense of, this would be great, but you were supposed to write Fables, and this isn't that, I wouldn't mind seeing this.
Yeah.
You're going to change a few names, but, write Fables. If you're going to do Fables, do Fables. Right.
Yeah. And you also had a long spin-off with Jack of Fables that lasted a while, and you co-wrote that, and I think you co-wrote a few other things with Lila Sturgis. What's the difference you've experienced between, writing something solo and collaborating with another writer?
Well, Jack of Fables is... I wrote him out of the main Fables storyline, and Shelley got on the phone and says, well, now that he, because the last thing we saw is Jack was never seen in Fabletown again.
Right.
But Fabletown's a small place. I was perfectly happy to have Jack come back in other places and other incidents.
Yeah.
But Shelley says, well, since he's on his own now, let's spin it off into a book. And I said, well, I'll co-write it if we can get someone else, but I just don't want it to be Fables light. It's got to be its own thing. And so we need another person's perspective. And so Sturgis was the obvious go-to.
Yeah.
And in that, it never quite clicked with me because I think the Sturgis and I wrote the entire thing to try and shock the other guy into quitting.
Yeah.
Every single episode or issue was, dare we do this?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And if we ask that question, so it was a huge 50-issue game of chicken. And then near the end, we tried to actually wrangle a decent story out of it, and I don't know that we succeeded. But it certainly wasn't like Fables, and it was fun and mean. Boy, if you're gonna do fairy tales, you have to be mean, and I don't think people understand that. You really, I don't think Once Upon a Time ever quite got there. It was close. You have to be mean, and you have to be mean really with the ones you love most.
Yeah.
It's an old cliche. If you want to figure out a writer's favorite character, who he puts through the shitter most is an indication that's probably who he really likes. Kill Bigby. Then when he's about to be able to be brought back, shatter the glass statue that keeps it, and it's like do every mean thing you can think of to some of these characters. And that's and the problem with Jack is you could never be mean enough for him to learn anything. As a matter of fact, the no learning, no hugs was one of our rules. So yeah.
I like that. No learning, no hugs.
Yeah.
We stole that from Seinfeld, which was their operation. The characters never learn, they never hug. Yeah, be mean.
I like that. And Fables wound up being kind of this second wave of Vertigo. I mean, we've talked to Richard Case and Rachel Pollack and others kind of who were in that first wave. But Fables was really in that second wave of titles that kind of reinvigorated that line I think I'm trying to say, during that time you had a couple different books there, but Fables was probably the centerpiece of them for a while.
Sure. For a while, I think those come and go. The thing with doing a comic book, if you're a writer, artist, whatever, is you can't be, this will prop up this line of books very well. That can't enter your mind. You just do the best story you can and let other people figure out, is that a proper Vertigo title? I never thought Fables was a proper Vertigo title. As a matter of fact, I'd love to redo some of the early issues where I had, for example, Snow White cussing, because it had to be an adult thing to be Vertigo. And so, screwing and cussing were basically going to be it. And there was pressure to put those scenes in,
It's kind of funny.
In hindsight, she said, no, we never pressured you to do that. It's like, yes, you did. It's like, I wanted to make it an all ages. And they even explained to me, it's like, we cannot have an all ages Vertigo book, because if little kiddies were reading this and picked up another Vertigo book and saw the stuff we were doing, we would be in so much trouble. So you have to put in the stuff. And eventually you'll find that I took it out. I took it all out because it sort of earned its place, so you could say no to editorial dictates and get away with it.
That's fascinating. That's the reverse, I suspect, of what a lot of people would think. But I'm trying. It is funny to think about this editorial mandate of like get some cursing in here. Have you thought about a sex scene with Bigby? We've got to have that in this book. This is funny in hindsight. It's funny to think about.
Yeah.
It just it needed to have enough mature content, a phrase I loathe, to pass as a basic Vertigo book. And some of the I get parents that come up and say, look, my 13-year-old daughter is starting to read this now, Fables. It's so wonderful. I go, oh my God, are you gonna are you editing it? Are you keep them away from the first dozen issues? Or, it always continued to have mature content, but just not cussing and on-screen screwing because what's mature about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enough. Yeah.
No, that is fair.
That's
But
awesome.
and you're you were saying you fell in love with Marvel comics when you were younger, and you got to do a little bit with Marvel. You did that Warriors 3.
I did Warriors 3. It didn't quite take off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Warriors a project afoot to have many Thor-related books come out in conjunction with the first movie.
Right.
And I had my choice of 4 different things. I forget. One of them was Thor Year One, which Brian Glass ended up doing.
Yeah.
And I was tempted to take that one. But Warriors 3 was the other one. I thought, well, I could do the most stuff with that because I wanted to tell us how did these guys get together and what were the real distinct characters and such. And since they were a kind of a Asgardian stand-in for the Three Musketeers, I thought it would be interesting. Well, let's introduce a D'Artagnan into that because the Three Musketeers were never what the book was about. It was about D'Artagnan kind of getting in and disrupting and whatever. So I introduced a female one, and that didn't inspire anyone. But I got to use Fenris Wolf as a villain. Always the best. I mean, Asgard Norse mythology always had the best monsters, and of them, Fenris was the best. So, I got to do some nice stuff with that. I did an issue of Nightcrawler as a solo thing, and he got to do some swashbuckling. And then I did a Nightcrawler Gamora thing with more swashbuckling. So I've been able to kind of dip my toe into Marvel. By the time the door was at least even slightly open for me to go over there and do stuff, I no longer knew any of the characters. I mean, I just could not follow up with all the. I mean, back when I read comics, Magneto was a villain, and there was the Hellfire Club, and they were all villains, and they're all X-Men now, and
they're having a party. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I knew the characters, and now they did. And plus, I quit a lot of it. I quit Spider-Man when Gwen Stacy died. I thought it was a perfect, a young kid. He screws up his first chance to be a hero. Then he learns it. He's kind of a hard luck guy. Finally, things are working out for him. He's respected as a hero in some areas, and he's got a great girl, Gwen Stacy. And then he screws up and accidentally kills her. And that is a perfect story arc. It is a tragic Shakespearean, and then having killed, he quits. It's done. He went home. And they kept using the character. That's fine, but I haven't read any since.
That was the jumping off point. I do. Yeah. A lot of people miss that. By the way, you did. I did. I think that was a very solid arc of a story. It was the story.
Yes.
And it is. I mean, it's the nature of comics, so they just have to keep going. But
well, yes.
But that I'm with you. I think. When I'm trying to explain, you just did it way better than I have. When I'm trying to explain Gwen Stacy and why that mattered, it's because of exactly what you said. It was that fulfillment of the story, and so it was a good end point. And thank you for that. You summed it up wonderfully.
and I don't know this what's her name?
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane.
Yeah.
She introduces herself and says, "Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot. Get out of here, you narcissistic bitch." It's like, I know real girls who are not, the most dangerous place to stand in any Marvel comic is between her and a mirror, or a camera. You know,
You're shipping
and-
Gwen
and-
Stacy. That's what we're saying.
yeah. What I'm saying is, and she's supposed to be the great love of his life. No, he's got more character than that. So, no, thank you.
I love it.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was the Spider-Man story. No need for any more.
Well, I mean, despite what you said, I think I would welcome you on Fantastic Four. So that would be, I think that would be a great title for you to do. But,
Yeah, I don't know anything about those characters anymore, though.
That's okay. I think you just erase all that. You just go back to
like every other writer. So.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If I could, oh, what a thing it would be. But yeah, it's that's not going to happen. And maybe, the things I love that I have too much respect for, I doubt I did a very good job with. The Superman thing being an example. I just froze. I couldn't do it. Now, after the fact, of course, what's the French term that translates as the wit of the stairs? When you think of everything you should have said on going home from the incident,
Yes.
now I can think of 1,000 good Superman stories that I should have done when I had the chance, and but it's too late. So,
well, those people are probably gone and don't remember what happened. So maybe you got another shot at it.
Yeah.
Well, when I took over Robin, I decided to keep everything that I loved and just discard the incrustation of just too much weird continuity.
Mm-hmm.
The people I heard from were the ones that, my favorite thing was this thing you got rid of. And for one thing, they hated the fact I wanted to. The story of Robin is a guy learning the business from the best guy in the business. That's the bedrock Robin. He's learning the superhero business from the best training officer in existence. So I did those stories, and I dialed Tim Drake back to where he was still learning how to be Robin from Batman. Readers hated that. He goes, Robin is perfectly, he's learned everything. He's, how dare you? You've taken him too far back. I tried to, there's one issue of that I tried to open up with. Batman and Robin are going to rescue a kidnapped girl, but him being Batman, Bruce Wayne, he knows where the kidnapped kid's being held. So he built a identical replica for training purposes inside the Batcave. And they were just running scenarios to make sure they could get to the girl before anyone could, put a bullet in her head. And of course, Batman, do it over. And the editor of that said, we can't do this. Batman and Robin don't need to train. Well, maybe Robin. Batman can have Robin train, but Batman does not need to train. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. Like, do you actually think the world works like you're the greatest pianist in the world, so you get to the point where you're the greatest and you can stop practicing because it'll just continue like that? Or any other example you care to. It's like anyone who does anything better than anyone else does it because he's constantly working at it.
Right.
But they wouldn't let me do that scene. So that's when I began to realize that maybe the stuff I really liked was not what the readership wants.
You didn't think that maybe when you had to tie into war games?
Oh.
Oh, Joe.
Everything you hate about war games, with 3 exceptions, three only, I contributed to the thing. Oh, people hate that. If you probably hate whatever you hate about war games, it's me a fault, my fault. I did not
ownership here. Yeah,
I did not want to kill spoiler. Oh, I didn't know who that Maggie, what's her name, was, and didn't care. And there was at least something else I thought they shouldn't do. In Robin, I was creating all these characters because when I took over Robin, they said spoiler's going to die. That's written. I go, okay, I guess I'll go along with that because, whatever. I think it's a mistake, but okay.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, do I have to kill her? And they go, no, it's going to happen in a different book. I go, okay. And then as I was starting to get into it, I started creating, well, she's going to die, so I'm going to create a new love interest for Robin. And because I seed everything 6 years before it's going to pay off, thinking that I'm actually going to be around in 6 years to do that, I created the Darla Kisa character, who is going to slowly become his new girlfriend when Spoiler dies and he's had a sufficient time of mourning, then she's going to step up. But it's going to be, we know this character by then.
Right.
And the other thing was I was going to do this long storyline of his Tim Drake's dad slowly finding out that he's Robin and flipping his shit as anyone would.
Yeah.
And that got rushed forward because they said, oh, by the way, his dad's going to die. And I go, why is his dad going to die? He's one of my characters. Like, he's Robin. I got this. I'm setting this up. And they go, well, there's this, is it Identity Crisis?
Yeah.
Every department has to contribute one corpse for this big crossover. And we decided that, we voted that Tim's dad is the one we're giving. I go, but I'm doing a big thing. It's like, oh, you can still do it. You just have 4 issues now to get it done, rather than
Speed up that
which is
revelation.
why, I took a lot of crap, deservedly so, for, well, now he finds out by finding the secret compartment in the closet with his costume. He was actually going to put the clues together a lot more elegantly than that, but we had to rush things. So things like that happen. We're like, okay, you got to accommodate this. I'm setting up this storyline. Oh, his dad's dead. I'm setting up this storyline. Oh, she has to die in Darla Kisa. We need a corpse in War Games, so she has to die. And finally, I realized that what I should have realized is these characters don't belong to me. They can be taken from me on a whim. Stick with things like Fables, where you get to, at least it's my stuff. I get to decide who stays, who goes. Who
Sure, but
you just have to make them curse and screw.
Yeah.
But to your point, though, all of the stuff you said sounds more interesting than Identity Crisis or War Games. All these years later, no one on Earth has ever liked War Games. And Identity Crisis was like popular for a blip, and now everyone hates it. And so they didn't go with your ideas. They went with stuff that ultimately became flops and damaged their own IP. Meanwhile, they're still to this day making more money off Fables. That seems
well. You got to understand.
Yeah.
No one at DC knows. They don't know who their characters are.
Yeah.
One of the reasons when Spoiler was going to die, I said, well, look, since she's doomed already, I have the storyline where Tim quits. Mm-hmm. So can we make her Robin for a while? They said, yeah, that'd be great. And so we made her Robin, and sales went up. It was like a thing. It got some attention. So I came back to him and said, can we ride this for a while? Does Spoiler have to die? We can write a good War Games thing without her dying. They go, nope, it was decided she has to die. And I said, look, you're going to bring her back. You are. Everyone who dies comes back except for Tim's dad, because that would actually help me do the story. Since you're going to bring her back, let's just not do it.
Yeah, take some money.
Sales are up because of this. Everyone loves the fact of a new female Robin, and boy, I'd love to have Tim quit for a much longer time than he did. But they wouldn't do it. And sure enough, she's back. Everyone that died or got radically changed by war games is back to their old status or some new status. I don't know. And you know, now Bruce Wayne has a son who's a ninja assassin, death demon, something. I don't know.
Well, why not?
In any case,
best kind of kids.
You can't do things like that to characters that are not your characters, and it's a rough waking to find out that you can pour your heart and soul into something and then have it just snatched away from you for what in many cases are whimsical reasons.
Yeah,
but all of DC was desperate. They were looking for the next big thing. That's all they need. The next big thing. It's a fix of heroin that you can't just do steady methadone to get you through your day. You need the next big fix. I don't think you can ever break that machine when you're working with big company characters. They want big things.
Yeah. Well, the addiction of events and spikes and sales is very high, and at this point, I don't know what you do with that, but. I want to be respectful of your time, Bill. You've given us a nice hour here, and we cover a lot of ground. I mean, that feels like a nice place to kind of wrap it. But I did want to ask you. A lot of people. I know there's a lot of fans. The Fables hardcover. I mean, there's a new edition out now.
Yeah,
right. The compendiums.
The compendiums are out, which are great. They look beautiful. They kept the spine consistent, from what I could see. So that's already better than most.
Yeah. And of course, the covers Bucky's doing for that is not a triptych. What's the form? Yeah. Is it diptych, or anyway? It's all one continuous illustration on the covers as well as on the spines themselves. When you rack them, they are gorgeous. And finally, some of the things that I've been some of the coloring and balloon placement mistakes that I've been trying to get fixed for years, they're finally agreeing to do. Not wonderful. All of them, but we're getting about. We read through. My girlfriend Megan and I read through all the Fables, and we just did a master list of all the mistakes, and we're getting about 60% of what we give them corrected. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's quite good for. The track record. Yeah, it's very good. That's awesome. Well, people definitely should check that. But what other things? How can people find you, and what should they be looking at for you to kind of check out more what you're doing?
Well, for one thing, don't find me.
Okay.
If you show up at my end of the road, we will shoot you.
Okay, that's fair.
How can people find me? Well, the Fables compendiums are coming out to coincide with the upcoming 20th anniversary of Fables. Mm-hmm. There may be some other things to coincide with the 20th anniversary of Fables that I'm not at liberty to speak about, or maybe I am just wishful thinking. But if you're still alive on the 20th of June, maybe take a look online and see what's what. There is, there's a lot of stuff. The thing that I'm most passionate about at the moment, and don't read this as I'm poo-pooing other work. I'm just saying that what I'm working at any given time is where my passions are.
Sure.
I'm doing a line of novels that now has 3 prose novels out that are all part of an interrelated urban fantasy universe. They're adventure stuff. The first novel in the group is called Hammer of the Gods, and it's about a kind of down on his luck half breed, half fairy, half human mercenary who accidentally comes into possession of Thor's hammer, and he's supposed to. It's broken. He needs to get it fixed, but at the same time, he needs to keep it away from all the different powers of the Earth and other worlds that think, oh my God, the super weapon of all super weapons. We want that, and we don't want a shitheel like you in possession of it. So that's kind of a detective / adventure / caper kind of thing. There's also Just Another Ranker, which is a mercenary in a Tolkien-esque land that is part of a rifle company. Guns against swords. Hilarity
Right.
ensues. And the third book that is currently out is The Remarkable Mr. Finn, which is in the same world as the others. He's a licensed private hero. This is a world of all the magic is out of the closet, but it's bureaucratized within an inch of its life.
Cool.
And so he is through going through the second most prestigious hero school available, licensed to practice heroism. But he's also a talking chimpanzee who is a really, really good detective because of the fact that his pattern recognition is greater than anyone else's. Because you heard the old canard: if you had an infinite number of immortal chimps randomly typing, eventually they'd type the complete works of Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, he's the one that did it.
Okay.
He's the one that he was part of the Infinite Chimp Company. That's how he gets the name Mr. Finn, Infinite Chimp. But he's the one that finally typed the complete works of Shakespeare. But they disallowed it. They disallowed it because he randomly dashed off 4 Jacqueline Suzanne novels between Twelfth Night and Much Ado About Nothing. And so they said that doesn't count. But really, it's because if you succeed, that whole bureaucracy of infinite chimps randomly typing has to shut down. And bureaucracies exist to protect their own existence. So that's their first. Anyway, so he had to quit the protest. But now that kind of just ability to see order in random things works well as a detective. So he's solving a little werewolf drug problem in Spokane, Washington. But anyway, and then I'm working on the second Tom O'Hara, this and that. This whole stuff, and all of that is available. I'm sorry for this protracted commercial.
This is what we want.
All of that is available Amazon Kindle. Look up Hammer of the Gods, look up Remarkable Mr. Finn, or Just Another Ranker. Or you can get printed versions on a print-on-demand thing. And so, eventually, my goal is to be Edgar Rice Burroughs. I've wanted to be him all my life anyway. Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote many, many series. His least lowest number of books in a series, well, that was actually the Mad King duology, the Mad King and the Eternal Lover. So I reached that. I got 2 books in, so I've at least reached that. But now we've reached Moonmaid set. He wrote 3 books in the Moonmaid series, so I've reached that goal. The next is to get 5 of these books out because he wrote 5 in the Carson of Venus series, and then the 7 books of Pellucidar, and then the 10 books of Mars, and then the 23 books of Tarzan, etc. And by then, so that's what I'm doing now.
I love that you're setting goals based on putting things out into the world. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. The weird template for if you're going to do these things yourself, and part of this is just to do the, you write a novel and you put it out yourself. There's not a single person in the chain there that says, why don't you do this instead? Or is there any reason this character can't, be a wheelchair bound veteran with PSDT? The ideas that other people bring as a precondition to getting it published. So this is for better or worse, this is purely my own. The only person's permission I have to get is my own. So blame me for everything.
Take the ownership.
But if you're interested, check those out. But there's always new stuff coming up.
Do check those out. So in the description of this video, whether you're watching this on iTunes or Spotify or YouTube, wherever it is, there will be links to this. So you can go right there and you should see something on the screen as well. But definitely go check out Bill Willingham's books. And if you've never read Fables and you're just confused by a lot of what was said here, this compendium is out, easy to get your hands on. And like I said, it looks beautiful. It's a great piece of work. So,
yeah.
Plus, they are individually thick enough to where if you are shot at, there is probably enough to stop most like handheld calibers to save your life. Fables will save your life. For like a good 50 caliber thing, you'll probably want to get all 4 compendiums when they come out and interpose them between you and the bullet. But other than that, yeah.
This is a key consideration.
So your own safety is what I'm
for
saying.
your own safety. You need to buy this book, and this is how DC should market more of their trades and their omnibuses. So what kind of caliber will this stop? It's a good plan.
Yeah,
I keep coming up with ad ideas for DC. With Fables,
they need them.
Like no Fable reader has ever been killed by a ninja. So for ninja protection. For your own sake, and they just don't think that's fun. They don't think that's fun at all.
Or the problem is they do think it's fun.
Yeah,
or they do. Yeah. Oh,
Bill, thank you very much for your time tonight. And yes, okay. So sounds like in July we're going to be following back up with you about something fun. So looking forward to that.
Yeah. Okay. And there's. Part of that will be something that every time I proposed the idea, people at Vertigo thought I was making a joke, and finally got to have happen because I wasn't making a joke. But anyway,
I love it. Okay, no more teasing.
Again.
Thank you very much, Bill. We'll talk to you again very soon.
Yes, thank you.
It's been my pleasure. You've been congenial and convivial hosts, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. This was great.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Cheers.
Sounds good. Have a good one.